So what's up, everybody? Trip Morgan here for Panthers Source. I'm all by my lonesome tonight on some kind of surprising, breaking random news today with Mike Shula being fired as the Panthers offensive coordinator. You may or may not have heard. If you haven't, I don't know what rock you've been living under in Panthers world, but Mike Shula was fired today. And there's been a lot of rumors on who's going to replace him. I know a lot of fans are jumping with joy. Some others kind of might be with me in some aspects as far as, I've kind of looked forward to this move, but at the same time, it's also a scary one because whoever fills this role could be a lot better if you get a younger, inventive mind, creative offensive coordinator to run with Cam Newton, Christian McCaffrey, Curtis Samuel next year, and the rest of that offense with Greg Olson, Devin Funchess, Damiere Byrd kind of coming into his own a little bit at the end of the season. But on the other hand, you could do worse than Mike Shula, believe it or not. Maybe not as bad as some of his situational play calling, but there's going to be a lot to discuss. I'm going to pull up some stuff because I know y'all will probably be hitting the comments hard. I want to be able to keep up with that. The phone lines are open, 704-665-0489 if you want to call in, give your thoughts on the situation, explain how excited you are or, how pissed off you are. I'll be happy to talk with you about that, and as well as whoever you think might be a good candidate. I've already seen people jumping on the comments on the post today talking about bringing Chud back. I don't see that happening. Really, at this point, as you may have saw my post about 45 minutes ago, it's been reported by Ian Rappaport that Norv Turner has pretty much been set up for an interview with Ron Rivera. And if you watched his press conference earlier today, he, to a T, described Norv Turner as as one of the candidates that he was looking for in that pool of guys he wanted to bring in. And it really shouldn't be as a surprise. He was defensive coordinator under Norv Turner, and he's always talked about the amount of respect he's had for him, how much he's loved his offensive mind. Dating back to last year, Bill Voth shared it, and I do remember that after he shared it, Rivera was talking about how just when you talk to Norv Turner, that you can just tell he has the offensive mind. Now, granted, you have to remember, too, Norv's had a lot of success in the NFL. Obviously, he had back-to-back Super Bowls with the Dallas Cowboys and Jimmy Smith in the early 90s. He revitalized that offense, but we're talking early 90s. This is now going into 2018. He was the offensive coordinator for the Vikings and suddenly resigned last year. I've got some quotes and stuff from that, an article from that last year from NFL.com we'll get into. But he was with them from 2014 to last year and then suddenly resigned out of nowhere. They were 5-2. The offense hadn't done a whole lot. Granted, they had the Teddy Bridgewater injury and a couple other things. Stephon Diggs had finally came on into his own in 2015, I think it was, and he helped lead them to 11-5 season and win the NFC North. So he had some good things, but the stats weren't necessarily there for a big offense. I know a lot of y'all are saying you can't get worse than Mike Shula, and I'll just read some of these stats and rankings I have pulled up for you. I'm gonna hit some of these comments I see rolling in, so I don't get behind. Antonio Tripp, what's up? What's up, buddy? Thanks for joining. What do you think about a new QB coach? That's another thing, and getting lost in this is kind of an important deal. Ken Dorsey was also fired with Mike Shula as QB coach. Everybody, I've been so caught up myself with the Mike Shula news that I kind of tend to forget Dorsey. But that's also an important aspect we'll try to hit on a little bit too. Of course, Billy's in here. He normally joins me on my post-game shows and previews here with Panthers Source, saying he was surprised. I don't think anybody was necessarily – I was certainly surprised. Not that it necessarily happened, but we're talking not even 48 hours after the wild card game, and I would have never saw that coming from the likes of Ron Rivera. And at his end-of-season presser Monday, he had just talked about how he didn't want to make any changes to this staff. And Marty Herney was on WFNZ talking about how him and Rivera had talked about things. They were on the same page about everything, and they were always open-minded. And Rivera said he was sitting there looking over things, picked up his notebook at 3:15 in the morning and started writing stuff down, and he decided at that point it was time to make a change. 3:15 in the morning, I saw somebody on Twitter say that's the best decision anyone's ever made compared to them at 3:15 in the morning. I tend to agree with that aspect. But So just really interesting and shocking in that kind of way for me. I would have never seen it coming this soon, if at all, really, because he's shown so much loyalty to Mike Shula. Antonio Carrell, Norv won't leave the building. I tend to agree. We'll see. Johans, where's Chip Kelly or Nick Saban? Nick Saban is not leaving Alabama, and I'm not sure he's necessarily a guy you want as offensive coordinator. He's probably more a defensive coordinator if you wanted to hold on to that. Chip Kelly, you can forget it. Like I said, Norv right now is the hot topic. I just saw my buddy Josh Klein from the Rob Report. They do a lot of great stuff. Some of the names they've thrown out is I think it was Brad Childress, who's Rivera and McDermott were on the same staff with them in the Eagles back in 01 to 03, I believe it was. I probably should have had some of their candidates brought up because they had a good list at theroutereport.com, so check that out. But right now, like I said, Norv Turner's the favorite. I'm going to read y'all some of these stats from Mike Shula over the years, and, it can get – I'll just start with him first of all. 2013, Mike Shula took over as offensive coordinator for the Panthers. Obviously, this was Steve Smith's last year in Carolina. They hosted a division round playoff game and lost to the 49ers with Colin Kaepernick leading. Mike Shula in 2013, 26th overall in total offense. These are strictly total offensive stats, and NFL.com ranks these by total yards per game. So I just did this as a basis. You can really skew stats in a lot of ways, but this is just a basis to compare both guys. Mike Shula, 2013, 26th overall offense in the NFL. 2014, 16th overall offense in the NFL. That's a 10-spot jump. That's pretty good in his first season. Coming into his second season. 2015, obviously, we all know what year that was. 15-1, went to the Super Bowl, ultimately lost to the Peyton Manning-led Broncos. I should say the Von Miller-led Broncos. Number one scoring offense, 11th overall in total yards offense. Cam's MVP year, things were great. KB was injured. That wasn't necessarily great for KB, but it worked out for our offense. Last year, things took a step back. We had injuries on the offensive line, and that really was a key cog to a lot of things last year, in my opinion. Particularly the running game was just eliminated because of it. But he dropped back to 19th. Again, that's 8 spots, and that's actually better than what I would have thought it was. And then this year, he didn't move in that aspect. He got some new toys with Christian McCaffrey, Curtis Samuel, and it's kind of – I feel like that has something to do with it, mainly the Christian McCaffrey role maybe, and just Rivera – they've talked about it, and even Rappaport talked about it on NFL.com. The inconsistency and the 3-and-outs was the biggest issue. Cam going out and dropping like the Detroit and New England games, and then coming out and laying a complete dud against Chicago, and then just the inconsistency. Now, some of that is on Cam, and then some of it is on some of the play calling. Now, look, I'll be the first one to say I've defended Shula some this year, and there's been other times where I haven't agreed with some of the calls he's had and made, but Shula doesn't control guys dropping touchdown passes like Kalen Clay, and I'm not sitting here making excuses for Shula on everything. I tend to agree this could be the best move moving forward. It's the candidates that this could potentially just set things back a year for the Panthers offense. There could be some struggles. There may not be. Cam Newton and the talent, whoever they draft, and Curtis Samuel coming back with Christian McCaffrey and all these guys being healthy at the skill positions, and if they draft another receiver, things could take off and be wonderful. But the reality is they could also take a step back in the year, and this is why if Rivera was going to make the move, I'm glad he did when he did, because with Cam Newton, you can't keep – when you switch systems, and it might not – when you switch systems, you can't – it's going to take time for everybody to adjust. You don't want to wait till Cam's in the last year of his contract, outside of his prime, to start making these moves. And that goes along with the core of these players. They've all been with Shula and known the system for – since 2013, 4 years now. It's going on 5. So those are things you really have to worry about. Norv Turner, as we talked about, was the favorite with the Vikings offensive coordinator. In 2014, was ranked 27th overall offense. 2015, 29th. That was the year I was talking about. They went 11-5, won the NFC North with Teddy Bridgewater. And he had a really good – I think that was his rookie season. He had a good rookie season. I'm not as big a fan of Teddy Bridgewater as many people are. I respect the dude for what he's fought through, but like I said, 29th overall offense, 2016, they fell back to 28. Now, obviously, he resigned in the middle of that year, and I'm sure some people are wondering what exactly that was. It was apparently personal decisions, and Turner also was quoted saying he felt like he was holding the Vikings offense back, which that's a little concerning, but he could have definitely meant from whatever personal issues he was fighting, whatever it was. I don't think has been released. I haven't seen anything on it, and I'm sure it would have been brought up today with the news of him being a top candidate for Rivera to hire, and I haven't seen it. Zimmer was quoted saying he decided it was in his best interest to do this, and I accept the reasons, and they are personal, and I won't get into the reasons of why he did. Zimmer did say that Turner had a minor surgical procedure last year, and that may have played a part. Like I said, I don't know. I'm going to try to jump back into y'all's comments here. Don't forget the phone lines are open, 704-665-0489. Antonio Carrell, we need a shake-up. And, look, that's really the other thing. You know, Rivera's talking about he needs a new perspective, and he really wants to keep to the power running game, and he expects some of the read option to stick around. And, like, that's really, if you take away the read option, in my opinion, you know, that's what keeps this running game, has kept this running game really alive in a lot of aspects. I think Cam Newton's, obviously his ability to run keeps the defense on edge, keeps them on their heels. They can't overcommit to the running back on the running play. And that was really my biggest issue with Shula this year, was particularly in the last Saints game. I know that's one game to pick apart, but I kept talking about he kept lining up in I formations and power running formations, and not once in the first half did I see a play action out of any of those, and they were all straight runs. And I said going into it, we need to run the ball, and I didn't want Shula to shy away from it. I knew a lot of people would complain about it, but the fact of the matter was the Saints have struggled against the run, and that's what we need to do. Well, he enforced that early, but the problem is there wasn't balance with play action. When he was passing, he was passing. And if he was play action, it was out of the shotgun, which isn't as effective when you're running through power, in my opinion, as much as he was. And then in the second half, he hit the one play action to Greg Olsen, and it worked beautifully for about 25 yards. But if that's what you build up for in a game, that's not going to cut it, especially when you're going on the road to play the Saints. I'm all for owning the time of possession. That's a key part of winning football games. I'm not going to disagree with Rivera there. Rivera is big on the stat. If you rush against your opponents for 100 yards a game, the stats say that 70% of the time you're going to win. It gives you a 70% chance to win that football game. That's fine, but you know you have to adjust to. You can't just keep pounding the damn ball down the middle if it's not working and you get down. Because if you get down 20, 21 points to the Saints and you run for 100 yards, you know, are you scoring points? You can rush for 100 yards and not score any touchdowns. I mean, that's a big issue, and that's really what Rivera said in the conference today too, was stating how the points scoring and down in the red zone just really seemed to fail. And Josh, if you're still watching, man, with the Right Report, feel free to call in. I know you're there on the ground constantly, there for the press conferences and stuff. So feel free to call in. Thought about hitting you up today, but I figured you were busy enough as it is. Johans, we need option expertise to take advantage of Cam's mobility. I remember when Steve Young, Jake Plummer, and John Elway throw out of the pocket, which stresses the defense more. Billy, reading stats today, 2015's defense and points on the board from them made him look good. This offense has struggled for a while. This year's defense didn't make the scoreboard look good. And look, that was a big argument with 2015 from that was a big issue with 2015. A lot of people outside of Panther fans were saying, y'all's defense has made your offense. Well, that may be true. Our defense got a lot of turnovers, and they actually had a lot of, pick sixes between Luke and some of the other guys. But here's the thing, and obviously field position plays a huge part. But it felt like this year, even when they had good field position off those turnovers, that they weren't capitalizing on it. And they would get, like the Saints game's a perfect example. They'd drive down, and they'd have to settle for a field goal. Now, Graham Gano has had a great year, and I don't want to harp on the one field goal he missed because we should have been scoring touchdowns, and it shouldn't have been on him in that one field goal to win the game. But in 2015, that was a big deal. But I will say Cam in the offense excelled. His completion percentage was a little bit better than it was over his overall career and other seasons. But the offense was there, and it took advantage of those. So I'm not going to sit here and make excuses for him. Cam had an MVP year. You don't just throw for 35 touchdowns because of your defense. You don't rush for 10 because of your defense to score 45 total. Cam had a great MVP year, and he was deserving of it. The offense was good. They scored the points, and they were 11th overall. Look, 11th overall offense is plenty good enough to win a Super Bowl if you have the defensive talent like we do, which, that's – I'll hit on that. I'll read some more, and then I'll jump into my next part there. See, Antonio Carrell, Ken Dorsey wasn't the answer for Cam. It doesn't seem so. Somebody asked me about that in the post today. My opinion on that is I haven't seen enough drastic changes from Cam himself, and good or bad, since Ken Dorsey's taken over that spot. So that move, to me, it's kind of wishy-washy. They'll bring in somebody else, and I think with Norv being his top candidate, is probably going to be his son coming in with him. I know that's a popular rumor right now too. That's what Ian Rappaport's been reporting. So that kind of fits there if they go that route. And like I said, I kind of agree with Antonio. I don't see Norv leaving the building necessarily. John, do you think some of the older players put some pressure on coaching and management? He goes or I go type of deal. Some pressure on coaching and management. He goes or I go type of. I don't believe that. Now, it'll be interesting to see if what the players say. I completely expect a supportive answer. Cam's not going to make any excuses. I can tell you that right now, Cam Newton's going to come out and say, I can see him totally saying, thank you, Mike Shula. He really helped this offense. He helped get us to a Super Bowl. I have a lot of respect for the man, but I support Rivera's decision. I'm a leader of this team, and I've got to do my job, and part of that falls on me. That's Cam Newton in a nutshell every time. He's never going to blame anybody for it. It's a sign of a leader, so don't be expecting that either. Mike Strib, you never know how this will turn out, and you're exactly right. Anything can happen. They could be interviewing Norv and then find out some of those personal reasons come up maybe and decide maybe this isn't the right one to go. Norv's 65 years old. That's kind of one of the reasons a lot of people are upset with the move from Shula. They feel like a lot of their schemes and things are the same, but Shula was bringing in better concepts from the college game. Buddy Scott Leedy, who does some of the film review with me, I bring on at Marxist Panther on Twitter. He's been on a tear today on Twitter complaining about this move. And like I said, a lot of people agree with this move. I know a lot of y'all up here have talked a lot to me this year on the post-game show and previews when I've supported Shula, and then when I've jumped down his throat, y'all have been saying, I've told you the whole time. I don't disagrry necessarily. It's just going to be interesting moving forward. I think you can do worse than Mike Shula is my point. That's my whole issue with that. But obviously, yes, I think he can do better. But the thing is, Rivera runs this team. He is the head coach, and Rivera, I don't see him bringing in a Sean McVay type of offense to run with his defense when he likes to run the ball and play defense and chew up the clock. I mean, I just don't see him doing that. Johans West, I want a power run option, scramble and deep pass type of defense to keep defenses on their toes. I also think we need more no huddle. I hate holding the ball and letting defenses dictate everything. I will agree with this. I've said this before too. Y'all probably know, more no huddle with Cam Newton gets him in such a rhythm. I'm not saying you have to run it. I'm not saying run Chip Kelly Oregon offense. I'm saying at least a couple drives a game, particularly the opening drive, in my opinion, get that offense. You want to start them fast. Get them clicking with the no huddle because he seems to get in a rhythm that way. Get them clicking, get the running game going, run some play action off of that, and keep things running. Obviously, I have never coached a down of football in my life. I'm just saying, if you're involved sometimes so much into the game and you're focused on these things in the heat of the moment, sitting back, I'm just sitting here like, you have to see that Cam Newton runs the offense better and he gets in a rhythm in a no huddle quicker. I just feel like, run some no huddle here and there, start the game and get it rolling. I mean, I don't know. I kind of agree with you there, Johans. Antonio Carrell, Shula plays take too long to develop. I was waiting on this comment. Especially the bunch single back formations, wide receivers run on top of each other, and he's so predictable. Yes, Shula can be very predictable. But if you ask any Vikings fan or fans that old Chargers fans, they will tell you they had the same complaint with Norv Turner. He was predictable with running the ball. Now, he could come in with these new toys and completely switch things up. I mean, that's a complete possibility. He might have different ways of using them. That's if he's the guy that's hired. He hasn't been hired, so I need to slow down on that part. Corey Davis, it may just come down to a new play calling system and new offense, not necessarily the players. We got the talent that could easily adjust to a new scheme. Rivera's right in some things. Just like we bring in some players who struggled on other teams, not Matt Cleo guys, so don't start jumping the comments. That's not what I'm talking about. But guys who struggle with other teams and then come to Carolina, and they like Kurt Coleman had struggled at times before he came to Carolina. He came here and had 2 great years. He struggled this year. A lot of people struggled in Steve Wilkes' system, which I kind of hope he gets a head coaching job, but we'll save that for a later date. But he came in and has excelled with Carolina's defense under Sean McDermott and whatnot. And this could be something else, if just a new face and slightly change of things from whoever the new coordinator is, could be a huge boost to this offense. I mean, who knows? I don't, but you're right. It could just a change of scenery on the offensive coordinator position could completely free things up. Antonio Carrillo, first play of the game, Stu broke, and then he shields away from it. Johannes West, think Marty will stay GM. A new GM might want his own people, QB coaches, etc. At this point, I kind of have a feeling Marty will be around, and he's really, he said this has been said to be ultimately Rivera's decision on Mike Shula. Obviously, Marty Herney has to give a thumbs up of approval somewhere down the line, and he's made some. I've liked some of the decisions Herney's made since coming back. Going into the draft will be the biggest part, and in the free agency, I have liked the things he said about getting more speed and athleticism and skill spots on the offense. I think that's crucial. Obviously, we saw it with depth when Curtis Samuel and Damiere Byrd went down. Curtis Samuel obviously we had a lot of hopes. He finally started finding his groove, went down. Damiere Byrd was a nice surprise to fill in when he came back, and then he goes back down again. You'd like to see a little bit more depth at receiver, and you could still find another solid 2 or maybe even 3 receiver in the draft. But how he approaches that in free agency, Herney said that he would like, to let that 7 to 10 day frenzy, first 7 to 10 day frenzy in free agency go by before he makes any crazy decisions and goes bankrupt. Because right now Carolina only has about $18 million in the cap, somewhere around there, and they need to re-sign Andrew Norwell. I'm on the sign Andrew Norwell train like tomorrow, right now. Do it right now. Star Latulele, him and Norwell, I would assume one of them's gonna stay, but I don't think they can find a way to sign both unless they do some serious cutting and restructuring. So that'll be interesting to play out. But like I said, I think Herney will be here for a little while. Do you think we'll reach out to Chud and bring him back, Lorenzo Keels? Now, I was kind of hitting on that earlier in the show. I do not. I don't think he's obviously a possibility. Rivera has some familiarity with him from 2012. I don't see him bringing him back necessarily, though, because one reason is Chud didn't. The offense didn't excel running the ball with Chud, and that was a big issue while Rivera went with Shula. Drew Keegan, do you think Funchess will be our number 1 receiver next season? It's hard to say. I don't know. It depends on where they hit receiver in the draft. They hit it all. I would expect they do. I don't think it'll be the first round, though. I just hope it's not a regret of what we wished for. I guess you're talking about firing Shula and then it turning out bad. That's my biggest fear. And again, switching systems can put you back, potentially a year or even half a season. But doing it now and having, OTAs and training camp and all that to implement that system will obviously be good. You wouldn't want to fire your offensive coordinator mid-season like a lot of people were calling for, especially when you're in the hunt for the playoffs like Carolina was. You're right. Norv had LT and he caught balls, ran the ball between the tackles, and broke tackles daily. I like McCaffrey in that type of role. Dante Ames, told you Shula was trash. Still love the show. Appreciate it, Dante. And look, I'm not, like I said, guys, I'm never claimed and never will claim Mike Shula is a god when it comes to offensive coordinator. I just think you can do worse than he did. Chandre Williams, do you think we're going to keep Starr? Yeah, I just kind of hit on that. I'm hearing if Wilkes leave, which I hope so, Eric Washington may be promoted. I think Wilkes harmed our defense versus helped it. Yeah, and look, I've been on that train all year. Well, specifically the second half of the year. Our personnel thrived a lot better under zone, and it could have been a product of just that, like I was mentioning with the offensive system being changed going into next season. You know, the defense was learning they shifted to more man and blitzing away from zone with Sean McDermott. That could have been a year of adjusting and guys just not being used to that role. Luke Kuechly struggled this year. I know he made All-Pro, but he struggled in that Saints game. I've seen him struggle multiple games, missed tackles, missed assignments, particularly in coverage, really, against the Saints game is where it really stood out the most to me. And that's a guy that you don't typically see that happen with. So it could have been part of that, but I think Wilkes might make a great head coach, and I hope he does. Maybe another year may have made a difference, but personally, I'm not a big Wilkes fan. And rumor also has it that if he goes to the Giants or wherever he goes, he could try to bring Eric Washington with him to be his defensive coordinator, which would be really interesting because players have said alike that losing Eric Washington, the defensive line coach for the Panthers, would be a huge loss. And if they're saying it, I tend to agree with them. Since he's been here, I think the Carolina leads the league in sacks over the last few years since he's been here with that defensive line. So hopefully that's not the case, because that would really leave us in a pinch looking for somebody. And that's when you start throwing out names like Jack Del Rio, and I don't want to get into all that. Let's see, Billy. No, I'm going to skip that one. Dante Norwell is tough. Yes, he is. But locking him and Trey up in those two guard spots would be huge for the offensive line, and you want to keep Cam upright and not have to start over there. If Norwell was so good, why couldn't we run the ball consistently? Well, I mean, Carolina faced 8-man boxes a lot too, and necessarily Matt Cleo on the left tackle running outside. I mean, these guys were all pros by Pro Football Focus and rated top in their, particularly Andrew Norwell and Trey Turner. Ryan Khalil came back and had some struggles, and Tyler Larson, while he filled in good for a backup role for a guy like Ryan Khalil, he wasn't perfect by any means. So there's some pressure that still comes up the middle. Norwell really helped out Matt Khalil a lot this year. If you go back and watch the film, you'd see what I'm talking about. Dante Ames, 4 other linemen. Yeah, exactly. There are articles about Wilkes' interview with the Giants that it is an uphill climb. I guess maybe for Wilkes you're talking about getting that job. He did leave for Arizona, I saw. So I don't know what that means. I felt like if they really liked him, they'd probably keep him there, but they do have other candidates as well. We saw they were talking about. But if Ryan retires, I like Larson. Yeah, I'd still like to see some other depth there. If Wilkes doesn't get a job and is staying, maybe he should be shown the door also. Billy, I don't think that'll happen. It seems like Rivera's got a lot of respect for him. And there could be a lot of turnover for Carolina this year. You're talking a new owner, potentially a new GM, potentially a new defensive coordinator, which is probably, I would assume, is going to happen. I feel like Wilkes is going to end up somewhere. And obviously now a new offensive coordinator and a new QB coach. That's a lot of turnover on your front staff, especially with everything that's surrounded the Panthers with the Jerry Richardson stuff going on. It's looking forward. Like I said, these could be small distractions moving forward. I don't know how that'll play into next year, but that's a lot of turnover. That's pretty much cleaning house outside of Rivera. Obviously, they do have stability there, and like I said, I feel like Marty Herney will be around. So, go back to y'all's comments here. See, I think we might change defense concept at some point. Might switch to 3-4 defense with 4 linebackers and do 4-3-2. Wilkes does switch up things. He just blitz, but we should play more zone. Yeah, I don't see us going 3-4 into Rivera. Going to be a wild offseason. I completely agree, Corey. It's going to be really interesting. Free agency is going to be fun. There's a couple of guys out there worth looking at. Don't have a lot of money to spend there, obviously. And then the draft is what I'm going to look forward to most. Seeing if we get Julius Peppers back is going to be another big key. Obviously, he did really well this season for 37 freaking years old. I don't know how you do that in NFL. Guy's a freaking nature. But money's money, business is business. You know, there's even been talks. I saw the Route Report brought up a good thing about possibly restructuring Cam's deal. That would be interesting and cool if that happened. There's been no talks of it. They're just throwing out hypotheticals. That would be interesting to free up some more cap space. I was thinking there was a chance Stu could be gone because that would free up about $3.5 million in space. But with Rivera talking about he wanted to stick with power running, I don't know how that's going to work because I don't think he'd stick unless he keeps Cameron Artis-Payne and looks to build up with him. That's obviously a possibility. But one of my biggest things with this whole power running is with Rivera talking about is he's gotten guys like, well, they drafted, I say him, I'm sure it was a team effort, but they've drafted guys like Christian McCaffrey and Curtis Samuel, these versatile playmakers that they talked about getting in space. I don't see how he plans to just run the ball and have these guys and using the way he was talking about on the same. You have to be somewhat creative in getting these guys the ball, and Shula did that at times. When Curtis Samuel was healthy and he came back for, I think it was about 2 games, I think he was in, they did that with some triple option stuff out of the backfield with him and McCaffrey, and it worked. It looked really good. It looked fun. It looked exciting with Newton. But then he went down, so we don't really know what all Shula could have had planned for him next year. But, hey, it is what it is now. I just hope moving forward this works. Maybe it brings a breath of fresh air to everybody. I don't know. We'll find out. And, you know, like I said, Norv Turner isn't hired as the guy yet. It's just been reported that he is set to interview, and that's just felt like Rivera was going to bring him in, and that's really the guy he wants to go. Unless something goes drastically wrong, it's hard for me to imagine him not being the guy he brings in. Rivera said he wasn't on a time schedule necessarily in hiring the new guy, but we'll see how that goes. See if y'all have any more comments. If we lose to the Browns, I'm done for the season. Chandre Williams. Yeah, that would be embarrassing. Respect can still be there, but it's business. Why it's so surprising that Shula was let go. Staff seems so tight after years. Yeah, but Wilkes has had 1 year. He didn't have 5 like Mike Shula did. That's the difference for me. Dante Ames, hope Pep doesn't retire or we will need a defensive end. Look, they're going to have – I think Carolina has to hit defensive end in the draft anyway. I would be shocked if they didn't. Pedro Barra, people are saying our wide receivers are practice squad material. Yeah, the ones we ended the season they were all practice squad players at one point. We need Tolbert back as fullback. No. Dante Ames, are there any left tackles in the draft? If so, move Matt to right tackle. No, don't move Matt to right tackle. And if you find a good left tackle, release Matt's ass on his out. Panthers have a potential out with Khalil next year to get out of the contract. A lot of people keep talking about all this money we paid Khalil, but Gettleman had a clause in there where he could get out of that contract in 2018 if things weren't working. 2 years is fair, in my opinion, to give a guy a chance. Don't pay him that full $55 million if he doesn't approve that. John Calashaw, Orma, we haven't seen his full potential. We'll see. Dante laughing at the Tolbert comment, and Johans. Pep over Johnson any day. Yeah, that's another guy I think will be gone. I don't see Charles Johnson coming back. They sat him. He was a healthy scratch against the Saints. He had a bad year, the PED suspension. I think his time's come. He had been held on to, really, I think, for the run game and a base 4-3 defensive end spot to help contain, and he struggled really all around this year. I'd be shocked to see him back as well, and they can save a couple $1 million there. I think it's about $2.5 or $3 million to the cap. And Carolina's going to need every last bit of it. It all adds up. I mean, if you cut him and Stu, all of a sudden you're looking at $6-7 million. So that's that. If y'all don't have any phone calls or anything, I think that's going to about do it. Or any more comments. Don't laugh at me. Oh, okay. We need a young stud safety, Chuck Bennett. Yes, I agree. I think safety is going to might be a point of emphasis in the draft this year, as well as I think you could see cornerback in there. Guys kind of struggled again. I think that had something to do with the man and blitzing schemes that we put them in. Bradbury definitely took a step back this week. this year. So, but anyway, well, like I said, guys, that's going to do it for y'all. Y'all be sure to follow us here on Facebook, on Twitter. It's all at Panthersaurus. You can subscribe to us on YouTube at Panthersaurus, all that jazz. It's as simple as that right there. So be sure to do that. And I'll catch y'all next time. If you have any more questions, be sure to drop them in here. I'll check back tomorrow and try to answer anything I can. It's going to be interesting moving forward. Whoever we get, maybe I really feel like it's going to be Norv Turner. If it's not, I'll definitely set something up and we'll go back live. Maybe I'll get Billy over here, somebody, Josh on the phone, and we'll talk about these things and see what we could be looking forward to. I will say this about Norv Turner. When he's had good quarterbacks and good tight ends and really a good running back, it sounds like a lot. It's like your core of your offense, but he has thrived. I mean, he did well with Antonio Gates in San Diego. Obviously, in the 90s, like I mentioned to start the show, he did well with Troy Aikman, their tight end, Michael Irvin, and obviously Emmitt Smith. Those are just Hall of Fame guys. I mean, you're probably going to do good with them anyway. But it'll be interesting to see. I know a lot of people are probably hyped up about Greg Olson with Norv Turner. It'll be something to see. I don't know. You can't just count on your tight end to do everything for you. So, anyway, I will. TD knows his reduced role is coming in the snippet of article I read. He doesn't want that. Well, TD was prepared for that this season, but it didn't happen. And I think he needs to know. I think he needs to know his time's coming. You can't keep matching Shaq Thompson up on receivers. He just gets blistered. It's ugly. Part of the reason I didn't like Wilkes never adjusted that either. But hey, we'll talk about that next year. We might have 2 new coordinators to talk about. Who knows? Maybe even a new GM. We definitely gonna have to talk about a new owner at some point too. But here's to a great off season. I will be sure to. Johans West, love the show. I appreciate it. Dante Ames, can't see the number. It's 704-665-0489. Yeah, it's in white. It doesn't really show up there. I probably should have looked at that, huh? That's why I got y'all guys, man. Y'all help run the show. It ain't just me. I just sit up here and blab and then read y'all's comments and tell you my opinion of it. I think it just gives us a place to all vent and let loose. Y'all all over there doing the Carlton over Mike Shula, and I'm over here like excited and nervous. So it's going to be interesting to see. Like I said, be sure to like and follow us right here. And here's to a good free agency, a good draft, scouting, a good new owner, hopefully not P. Diddy. I don't care about halftime shows. I care about wins and losses and Super Bowls. So thank y'all. Keep pounding. Like I said, if you have any more comments, drop them in there, and I'll try to get to them tonight or tomorrow and keep up with them. Thank y'all.